innovative mechanics, forward-thinking mechanics. Ike Turner was one of those. I was a teenager when I first met Ike Turner. And back when probably 95% or more cars were using flathead Ford engines, Ike he knew a little bit about some Hudsons, and he thought there was a better way to go. So Ike started building Hudson engines. Now, the big obstacles in front of him on that was he couldn't use the same gears because the old Hudson had about a half-inch longer stroke than most of the flatheads did. So he had a brother that was somewhat of an engineer that actually took tire size and engine stroke and all that, and actually came up with a good combination of gears that Ike has never shared, not even to this day, that they came up with. But with old Charles Hullett, that car was really, really hard to beat. I used to think about it as a big hound dog coming down the straightaway with his gears laid back when Charles would get in front. But Ike Turner, and it took guys like Ike Turner to get racing where it is today. You had to have those engine builders, those car builders that would think outside the box. And a testament to how good he were, Ike's got his race car here today. The car still runs. And after this is over, I think he's going to fire it up and let those that wants to hear it run. And I suppose if I told Ike we needed to race tomorrow, it would be ready to race tomorrow. Ike was that kind of guy. Ike?
I want to thank everyone who made it possible for me to be here. For everyone that has helped me along the way. I have two brothers who are deceased, Gene and Bill, and especially Daniel, he said something about the engineer, and that's my brother Gene, and he wasn't just a regular engineer, he was an excellent engineer. We had a good relationship. Bill, he was the paint body man, and I was mostly involved in the assembly process and doing the adjustment that was needed to make the engine and the chassis and everything that would work together. And of course, the family has to be a part of this. And we had a daughter that was real young. And of course, Charles Hullett, he was the driver and an excellent man. He was winning his part of the races. And I have with me here a little, I guess you could say, a notebook my daughter has put together. Back in those days, we had no videos, no cameras, and the race was held on Friday and Saturday night, and we would remember it, but most of the people wouldn't. So the Southern Standard, they printed the results of the race every Monday morning, and we would take that, and we could remember and go back and see when and where we won. But my daughter, a few weeks ago, she put together a little notebook that we have here that she's taking the papers and cutting out where Charles Hullett had won. And I'll have to say that Charles won his part. I don't know that it's a record, but it's a good average. Every time you open this book here, it says Hullett wins again. He wins 3 in a row, he wins 4 in a row, and finally we got the championship. So it may not be a record, but it's a good average. So, and I want to thank everyone that's here tonight, today, to represent me. And I know that some of you have never heard an old car run, but it's a little loud, but if it does what I think it will, I think we can wake you up after we start here, just after we get through here. So we would thank everyone, especially Randall Davis, Roy Breeze, and the ones that been to my shop and talked to me and asked me if I would be a part of this, and I'm honored to do that. Thank you.
gives me a great pleasure to know the mechanic you were and still are. Welcome to the Cumberland Hall of Fame. Well deserved. And guys, I don't know, I may get this a little bit wrong, but I will correct me. If you were listening to part of what he said, he accomplished something that if it's not a record, it's going to be awful close to a record. Charles won 2 championships and 2 or 4 races in a 2-week period. And that's almost, if that's not a record, I don't know of anybody else that has done that. But that's how great Charles was with that car, and he couldn't have done it without Ike building a car for him to do that with. So they were a team that was really to be reckoned with any time that they showed up. And again, it's good to have a race team this day and time, after all those years, that is still intact, they still get along, they're still colorful characters. If you don't believe it, talk to Charles Hudd in a few minutes. You'll see what I'm talking about. Thank you, Ike. Guys, this brings us to a part that it's a pleasure to do. I wish we didn't have to do it like this. And Tina, if you would, and Ken would like to, please come up. Guys, as we, a lot of what this event is about is preserving memories. And it don't matter how big you were, you can be president of the United States, you can be a dictator of the world. But when you leave this old world, all you're gonna leave is some memories. And like I say, that's what a lot of this is about. The only thing that we can really hope for is to leave the memories that Jeff Walker is leaving. Jeff, I didn't know Jeff until we started doing this podcast together. But Jeff was an accomplished racer. He was all around just great human being, fun to be with. I knew Jeff's dad for years and years, but I only got to meet Jeff during this podcast. So just hope and pray that you can leave the memories that guy's leaving. He was, I haven't seen anybody yet that had anything but good to say about Jeff. I know Mike had been really sick. Jeff would call him every day, try to make him feel better. And anybody that needed mentoring, Jeff was always proud to do that. He was a real accomplished racer, a clean racer, and he competed and won against some of the best out there. So Steve, if you would.
If I pause a few times, please bear with me. I never got to know Jeff as long as I wish I could have known him. I got acquainted with Jeff through the podcast, and I never heard a harm word come out of his mouth. Never heard him having a bad day. I can say from the bottom of my heart, if this world had a few more Jeff Walkers, this world would have been a whole lot better place to be. Jeff was a class act, and one thing I remember about Jeff, we was recording down at Miss Gilda's, and Jeff sitting in the corner, had his tablets, had some notes down there, and I was up there, kind of like I have been today, stumbling and stammering, doing the best I could. And I told Jeff, we got done with the first recording, I said, Jeff, I said, come on up here and try this. Oh, I don't want to. I said, yeah, come on. After the first session, I realized Jeff needed to be in my spot because Jeff was a natural. When he would interview, he would just sit there and just like he's having a fireside chat. And there'd been several times that I told Jeff, I said, Jeff, we need to record you. We need to document you. And Jeff would always smile and say, oh, I ain't done nothing. Jeff, you did do something. You touched a lot of lives of people. And I can say I lost a good friend that day.
I've known Jeff way before the podcast, pretty much my whole life. He's always been the same. One of my best friends in the world. We talk every day, sometimes twice a day, and they've not no better human being than Jeff Walker. I hate it so bad. It's just it's been unbelievable. But he gave his whole life to racing, and I know he loved his family, and I just I miss him terrible. And thank you guys. I just wanted to say a little something about Jeff.
I've known Jeff ever since the day he was born. He was always a nice kid, loved racing. He hadn't been for Jeff, I wouldn't have been into the broadcast. I really didn't have want to, and Jeff called me and he said, look, he said, this is our history of our life. He said, we need to do this to pass the history on. So I'll never forget the first time we went to do a broadcast. We went there, we got there, he had the cell phone, I had the phone, and he asked me, he said, well, how do we do this? I said, I don't know, I ain't got a clue. I said, I'm just coming with you. He said, okay, he said, there's somehow that you do this. He said, let me call Tina. So he called you, 3 times before we even got started, and then she told us how to do it. Well, we didn't have a stand to put it on, so of course, I'm a real engineer with a pair of vice grips. I took a pair of vice grips and we clamped it on a 2x4, and that's what we used for stand. But I'd like to thank Tina also for helping us do this.
I think he loved the conversations you guys had coming and going as much as he did the podcast.
We enjoyed it. We enjoyed it.
First thing I need to say, guys, is he's here with us today. He's smiling down on us and just laughing and having the biggest time because he looked forward to this day. And as you all know, he looked forward to racing. I mean, every breath he took was about racing. We had breakfast talking about racing. We had lunch talking about breakfast. And could not wait to get home at night so we could watch a race. Next morning, guess what? Very first thing. Let's do the replay of it, every day. Jeff was a great racer. He was a great racer. He could do, I think, more with a car with less than probably anybody because he didn't really care about if he had more or not. He didn't care. He had the knowledge and he had the fun. He's raced all over. We've traveled so much. I guess one of the biggest highlights that I remember was the last year even that NDRA raced. He finished 10th. We traveled everywhere. We finished 10th that year in the points. We carried Chrissy everywhere we went. We were in Iowa one time, and I remember so well. We had been freezing some corn, and she was asleep in the back seat. She was coming through Iowa, and she woke up, and she said, gosh, Mom, I got a lot of corn to freeze here. It was on both sides of the road. Yeah. Another highlight that I remember so well was it was big race week at Talladega. Cup guys there, they were all at the dirt track, Talladega short track. And he won that night, guys. He won that night. He always wanted Talladega, and he got it. And as soon as he got out of that car and grabbed me, he climbed the fence. Talladega short track. It was amazing. But he's here with us. Guys, He thought the world of each and every one of you. He could tell stories about all of you. He did. Podcasts, oh my gosh. He loved them. He loved doing them. He thought the world of all of you guys. He did. And just couldn't wait to do the next one. You know, that was what was on his mind. We got one more. We got to get to work and do some more. Thank you guys. Thanks for loving him. Thanks for loving him and being good to him and all that you've done. I appreciate this. He appreciates this. Like I said, he's watching and he's loving every bit of it. Thanks, guys.
I wish it was under a different circumstance, but welcome Jeff to the Hall of Fame. It's well deserved. There was no better guy, and I don't think a better driver than he was. And this is probably his greatest trophy right here. Thank you, Tina. Before you leave, we've got Harvey's got one more thanks he'd like to give in Jeff's name.
So back in the summer, Mike was getting some not so good reports from the doctors, and Jeff texted me one day and said, "Hey Marty, what's your address?" And I texted to him, and 3 or 4 days later, there was a Hope Cross in the mail from Jeff. And that was just Jeff, caring about people, always wondering. Most of you guys know that Mike just spent 4 weeks in the hospital at Vanderbilt, and Jeff texts every day. Of course, I sent out updates every day to the team, but every now and then I would just get a special text from Jeff, just, "Hey, how's my buddy doing? How's Mike doing?" And that's just what kind of person Jeff was. He was an encourager to all of us. When we were racing, when Mike was still racing, and we were going to Duck River in Winchester, and I was so jealous of Tina because she had an automatic scoring thing, and I had to use those stopwatches, and she had this fancy thing that she could keep up with times with, and I was so jealous of her. But we had such a good time racing over the years with them. But this racing, all these people are family, and Jeff was a special part of our team, and we just wanted to do something to show our appreciation for all of his help, for helping us at Southern Dirt Motorsports. So this is just a little something for you guys to have. And that's Jeff smiling down, and I'm sure he's smiling down from heaven today. Thank you.
I'll share this one more thing with you, and I think it was Gary that shared this with me. Jeff enjoyed doing the podcast too. His driving days was starting to dwindle down some. I think he's like most of us. I don't know that we ever quit. We just don't do it anymore. But the thing he wanted to do with the podcast was to stay involved in racing, and it's such a loss that we've had that we don't have Jeff here anymore. And thank y'all. Guys, we're about through with this, but I want to ask you to do one more thing if you can. Now, Mike Luna didn't ask me to do this, neither did Steve Winsey. But it takes money to put these podcasts on. And if you have a few dollars or change or whatever to contribute some to this, I, for one, would sure appreciate it because they bear, the two of them bear the expense of all this. So if you have a little money that you could scatter around today, that lady with the black on that's sitting in front of the camera there that's been videoing that, hand it to her, and it'll be used entirely to keep this podcast and this Hall of Fame going. With that, I hope you've had a great day. I hope you have a great rest of your life. It's been a pleasure for you here, and hang around and talk as long as you'd like. Continue to see old friends, and if you can, make a few new ones. Thank you guys for being here.